I also want to bring in another dimension that you've often emphasized yourself. You've been talking about the importance of actually seeing China with your own eyes. I noticed that at the time of the Busan summit late last year, you spoke with several American media outlets. I have to admit, what struck me a bit was some hosts and commentators seem to hold a deep misconception about China, or at least lacked a basic understanding of the country. At times, it sounded as you had to walk them through some very basic realities about China. But what's interesting about this is at the same time, we're seeing something quite different at the grassroots level, from iShowSpeed's hugely viral China trip to the broader China travel wave on TikTok and YouTube to growing online exchanges between young Chinese and Americans on platforms like Radnote. And even recent Pew polling suggests younger Americans are developing a more positive view of China. So, are we witnessing a disconnect here, between official Washington and ordinary Americans? How crucial do you think people-to-people exchanges are in stabilizing China-US relations today?
Well, there is a little bit of a disconnect um, because official Washington tends to be pretty critical of China. Members of the U.S. House and the U.S. Senate are publicly very critical of China. That is true. On the other hand, as you point out, American perception of China, at least according to Pew and to like, several other um, companies, is improving. That is, Chinese perceptions of America are better now than they were maybe 10, 3 or 4 or 5 years ago. And it's partly because, as you say, the internet, TikTok and YouTube, so a lot of younger people who use those those channels more than older people tend to want to connect with Chinese, and they see all the, I forgot some of the names of some of the wonderful characters who now appear on TikTok and YouTube. But that's true. I think there's another dynamic here too. There's a famous American president, Abraham Lincoln, who once said, "You could fool some of the people all the time, and you can fool all the people some of the time, but you cannot fool all the people all the time." And I think that's analogous here. People are pretty smart. They kind of know what's going on. They can, read between the lines. They can listen to the music as well as the words, and they kind of know that maybe it's not quite as bad as some of the politicians in the United States might say. But more important, or as important, you alluded to it. It'd be so much better if many more Americans would actually physically go to China. It's one thing to read about China to Google, look up or internet or whatnot, or on Facebook, but it's much, much, much more important to go personally to China, taste it, feel it, smell it, see it, talk to people. Don't just check the box and go to the government officials, or don't just go to see the pandas. Get around the country, see what China is all about, and that would help so much. Right now, about 260,000 Chinese students study in America, 260,000 a year. Well, how many American students study in China? It's about 700, only 700. It's a huge, huge imbalance. And I just, it'd be so important if more would, not just students, but more Americans would go to China. They're a little afraid to go to China. At an airport, before I got in the plane to go to China about 2, 3 months ago, well, Max, where are you going? I'm going to, oh, China. Oh, are you going to be safe? Are you going to be okay? Of course I'm going to be safe. Of course I'm going to be okay. But it's just if people were to go, they'd find out they would be safe and okay.